All right, let's get right into it. We are in the middle of a massive, and I mean massive, shift in how the world works. All the old rules for getting ahead, work hard, climb the ladder, they're not just changing, they're being flipped completely upside down. What if I told you that by 2026, being the hardest worker in the room could actually be the biggest financial risk you take? It sounds crazy, but stick with me, because we need to talk about this.
I want you to really let this sink in, because this one sentence explains everything. Look, the real threat to your job isn't some faceless AI. It's not just a piece of code. The real threat is a person, another human, who has figured out how to own and leverage that code at a scale you could never compete with on your own. This isn't about tech replacing people, it's about tech-leveraged people replacing everyone else.
And yeah, that leads us to this incredible paradox. The one thing that's always been praised, your work ethic, your dedication, putting in the extra hours, is starting to look like a liability on a company's spreadsheet. And why is that? Well, it's because when you are the hardest worker, you're also the most expensive, least scalable asset they have. You can only work so many hours in a day. An algorithm can work 24/7.
To make this real, let me paint you a picture. Let's meet two people, David and Sarah. David is your classic high achiever. He's a senior analyst, works 50, maybe 60 hours a week, and makes a good salary, let's say $120,000. To his company, David is a resource. He's a cost center. Now, across the street, we have Sarah. Sarah's an analyst. She's what you might call an architect. She owns a ghost firm. What does that mean? It means she's built a system of AI agents that do the work of 20 Davids. 20. She serves the same types of clients, but her income isn't a salary, it's pure profit. In the economy of 2026, David is a liability. Sarah is free.
Okay, so let's dig into the hard data behind David's problem. I want to be really clear. This isn't some sci-fi prediction for 2050. This is happening right now. The trends are clear and they are picking up speed fast.
So check this out. We're seeing this wild split in the job market. On one hand, you have white-collar jobs, think office support, admin roles, even some analyst work. And those opportunities are shrinking. They're being automated. But on the other hand, skilled blue-collar jobs that AI can't just replicate. We're talking plumbers, electricians, welders. Those jobs are absolutely surging. Their value's going up because you can't download a plumber. The traditional, safe office job path. It's becoming anything but safe.
And the scale of this change is just staggering. I mean, look at that number, 12 million. A recent analysis from McKinsey estimates that 12 million workers in the US alone might have to completely switch careers by 2030. We're not just talking about learning to use a new app here. We're talking about your entire profession potentially becoming obsolete. And you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm not in an entry-level job. I'm a manager. I'm safe. Well, the data is telling a different story. Gartner is predicting that by 2026, a fifth of organizations are going to slash more than half of their middle management positions. As AI gets better at reporting, coordinating, and tracking progress, that traditional role of the manager is just getting squeezed out of existence. Okay, so that's the reality. It's a little scary, I get it, but we're not going to just sit here and panic. If the old model of work is breaking, we need a new one. And that brings us to the most important part of our conversation today, a critical change in mindset that I call the agentic pivot.
So what is this agentic pivot? It's your new game plan. It's a conscious, strategic decision to stop being David the resource who trades his limited time for a paycheck and instead to start becoming Sarah, the architect who builds and owns the systems that create value around the clock, whether she's working or not. It's the shift from being a cog in the machine to owning the entire machine. This quote I saw recently just nails it. It explains why simply being more productive at your job is a trap. Think about it. If your boss gives you a new AI tool and you suddenly do your work twice as fast, who really benefits? Are you getting paid twice as much? Probably not. You're not the bottleneck. You've just created a bigger pile of work for the next person in line. Or worse, you've just perfectly demonstrated to your boss how your job can be automated. So how do we make this pivot? It really boils down to three fundamental shifts in how you think. First, you stop thinking about selling your time by the hour and start thinking about building assets that work for you. Second, you stop focusing on just doing individual tasks and you start thinking like an engineer, designing the entire system that performs those tasks. And third, your focus shifts from just earning a stable salary to actually capturing the profit that your systems generate. Now, I know this can sound a little abstract, building systems, hiring agents. So let's make it super practical. Let's talk about the actual tools you're going to use to build your new digital workforce.
Let's talk about AI agents.
Okay, first, it's really important we get this distinction. An AI agent is not the same as an AI tool like the ones you might be playing with. A tool is passive. It waits for you to tell it what to do. An agent is, well, it's autonomous. It's a digital worker. You give it a high-level goal, like find me 10 new sales leads that fit this criteria and book meetings with them, and it goes off and does it. It can plan, use tools, and figure out the steps all by itself. Think of it less like a hammer and more like a carpenter you just hired.
And the best part is, you can start hiring your own team of agents right now. There are 3 big categories taking off. You've got customer service agents that can handle most of a company's support tickets. You have sales agents that can prospect, qualify leads, and literally fill your calendar with appointments while you sleep. And then there are internal ops agents, the ones that can run the whole back office of a business, automating things like data entry, invoicing, and reporting.
And if you want to understand the sheer economic power here, just look at this example. One real-world case study found that a single internal ops agent saved a client $240,000 in 1 year. Now imagine you're not the one using that agent to save money. Imagine you're the one who owns that agent and sells its services. You're not saving costs anymore. You're capturing that $250,000 as pure profit.
So you see how this starts to build into a whole new way of thinking about business and income? This right here is the payoff. This is what happens when you make that agentic pivot.
This is one of my favorite examples. It comes from a McKinsey study. Look at this owner-to-operator ratio. In a traditional company, you might have 100 employees doing the work and 10 managers overseeing them. Now look at the new model. You have 100 AI agents doing the work, supervised by just 5 humans. The amount of leverage is absolutely insane. The person who owns that system has the output of a 100-person company with the costs of a tiny startup. And this new reality gives rise to the ghost firm. It's such a cool concept. This is a business, often run by just one person, our friend Sarah from before, that uses a team of AI agents to deliver value at a massive scale. It's all profit, very little overhead. It's a business model that was pure science fiction even 5 years ago. And this chart right here, this says it all. This is the economic endgame. David, the resource, has a linear income. It's capped. He works more hours. He doesn't necessarily make more money. But Sarah, the architect, her income potential is exponential. Every new client she adds doesn't just add a little bit of revenue, it dramatically increases her profit because her costs basically stay flat. It's the definition of scalable income.
So when we zoom out and look at the whole economy, what does this create? Well, economists are calling it a K-shaped economy. Imagine the letter K. The top arm is going up and to the right. That represents the owners, the people who own the AI systems in the capital. Their profits and productivity are soaring, but the bottom leg of the K, that's going down. That represents traditional labor, whose wages are staying flat or even declining because their value is being replaced. The gap between the two is getting wider every single day.
So this brings us to the end, and it brings everything to a head. The data is clear, the tech is here, and the ground is shifting right under our feet. And it really all boils down to one simple but incredibly important choice that you have to make.
And this is what I want you to walk away with today. The most critical career decision you're going to make isn't about what your job title is or which company you work for. The real choice is what role are you going to play in this new economy? Are you going to be the resource, whose value is measured by the hours you can work? Or are you going to be the architect, whose value is measured by the systems you own? Because please, make no mistake, this automated future isn't coming, it's already here. It's being built right now as we speak. So the only real question left for you to answer is a personal one. Is that future going to work for you, or are you going to be working for it? Let me know in the comments. What's the first step you're going to take after watching this? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Wow, that was something, right? But don't go anywhere, there's more coming, and it's gonna make you think in a whole new way. Quick reminder, if you like learning cool stuff without the fluff, subscribe now. You won't regret it.
All right, let's talk. We need to have a serious chat about your bank account. Because something is happening, a massive shift, and it all boils down to one simple, powerful idea. It's time to stop being the bank's cheapest labor. So let me ask you something. You've worked your butt off, you've saved up, and you've got 10 grand sitting in a savings account. Good for you. Now, do you think of yourself as an investor in that bank? I mean, it kind of feels like you are, right? It's your money, your capital. Well,
Here's the cold, hard truth the bank will never tell you. You're not an investor to them. No way. You are their cheapest, most reliable source of capital. You're the raw material they use to run their actual business. And today, we're going to blow the doors off of what that business really is.
So what is that business really? It's got very little to do with keeping your money safe in some giant vault. It's all about putting your money to work for them. So let's pull back the curtain and see how they're really making a killing from your savings.
Okay, lean in because I'm about to give you the secret password to understanding banking. It's called net interest margin, or NIM for short. This is it. This is the whole game. It's just the gap between what the bank earns from lending money out and the tiny little slice of interest it pays you for your deposits.
You see, when a bank has a positive NIM, that means the system is working perfectly. For them, they're taking your cash, lending it out for a much, much higher rate, and just pocketing the difference. The bigger their NIM, the more money they're making, using your money. And that difference, that gap, it's huge. Let's call it the great yield gap. And now we're going to put some real hard numbers to this, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is where it gets absolutely wild. So let's start with your side of the deal. You put your money in one of those high-yield savings accounts, and I'm using air quotes here, and you might get, 4% APY if you're lucky? That's your reward. That's your little thank you pat on the head from the bank. Now, for the bank's side of the deal. They take that exact same money and lend it out in the private credit market. Maybe it's a super safe asset-backed loan to a trucking company, and for that, they could earn 16%. See that? That's not a gap, my friend. That is a canyon. Let's do the math real quick. On your $10,000, you make $400 in a year. The bank, using your money, makes $1,600. Their profit, what the industry calls the spread, is a cool $1,200. They made 3 times more than you did with your own cash. For decades, the excuse for keeping that spread was that the bank was a trusted middleman. They did the paperwork, the risk assessment, all the complicated stuff. But here's the absolute game changer. In 2026, all of that expensive, slow paperwork is being replaced by a smart contract. Basically, a piece of code that does it all automatically. And that, right there, changes everything. So, where are these juicy 16% yields hiding? They live in a world called private credit. And for a very, very long time, this was a private playground, an insider's game for the financial elite. So what is private credit? It's actually pretty simple. It's just lending that happens outside of the normal banking system. You see, big banks have kind of backed away from lending to a lot of really good, solid companies. So these private funds stepped in, provided the capital, and started capturing much, much better returns. And let's be clear, this is not some small niche market. We're talking about a $1.5 trillion asset class. Let that number sink in for a second. This is a core, essential part of the global financial engine. And who have been the kings of this playground? Giants like Blackstone and Apollo. For decades, these massive institutions have dominated this world. And for regular folks like you and me, access was pretty much impossible. This was their game, played by their rules. Until now. But what if there was a key to that locked vault? A new piece of technology that could pry open a backdoor for everybody else? Well, that key exists, and it's called tokenization. Real-world asset tokenization, or RWA tokenization, sounds super complicated, but I promise, the idea is incredibly simple. You take a real thing of value, like one of those high-yield private loans we talked about, and you create a digital certificate of ownership for it on a blockchain. Each token is like a digital deed, proving you own a piece of that asset. Let me break it down. It really happens in 3 simple steps. First, a loan gets made to a real business, just like it always has. Second, instead of just sitting on a bank spreadsheet, that loan gets chopped up into digital tokens. And third, investors, like you, can now buy those tokens, which means you're buying a small slice of that loan and earning a slice of the interest payments. Simple.
So what does this actually mean for you? Well, a few game-changing things. It means you can own a piece of a huge, valuable loan with way less money. It means it's much easier to get into or out of these investments. Plus, everything is transparent. You can see exactly what you own. And those smart contracts, they can handle sending you your interest payments automatically. It's a massive, massive upgrade.
All of this is leading to a huge shift in mindset. a totally new way of thinking. It's no longer just about saving money. It's about how you, yes you, can finally become the bank. I really want you to think about this paradigm shift. Your whole life, the financial system was set up for you to lend your hard-earned money to the bank for peanuts. Now, technology is cutting out that middleman, allowing you to lend directly to the same businesses the banks were lending to all along. You get to step into their shoes. And this gets to the very heart of a different way of thinking about money. This is how the rich stay rich. They don't just pile up cash in savings accounts. They put their capital to work. They lend it out and collect the interest. They act like the bank. So if you take away one thing from this, let it be this. Tokenized private credit is the tool. It is the key that is finally unlocking the vault, giving you access to those incredible interest rate spreads that, until now, were pretty much reserved for the financial elite. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought. All that complicated, expensive paperwork that used to be the bank's excuse for taking a huge cut, it's now just a piece of code, a smart contract. The barrier to entry has been vaporized. So the only question left is, are you ready to change your mindset? Are you ready to be the lender and not just the saver?
Wow, that was something, right? But don't go anywhere, there's more coming, and it's gonna make you think in a whole new way. Quick reminder, if you like learning cool stuff without the fluff, subscribe now. You won't regret it.
Let me ask you something. Do you ever feel like you're on a financial treadmill? You get a raise, you work harder, but at the end of the month, you're not really getting ahead. It feels like you're just treading water. Well, what if I told you there's a way to give yourself a 30, maybe even 40% raise overnight without asking your boss for a single cent? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something called the Nomad loophole. It's a completely legal strategy that uses your location to your financial advantage, and honestly, it's one of the biggest game changers for anyone who can work remotely in today's world.
I want you to really let this next sentence sink in, because it is the entire key to what we're talking about today. You don't have an income problem, you have a jurisdiction problem. Read that again. It's not about how much you make, it's about where you make it, and more importantly, where you keep it. Your jurisdiction is just a fancy word for the country, state, or city whose rules you're playing by. And what most of us don't realize is we can choose a different rule book.
So, what does a jurisdiction problem look like in the real world? Well, think about this. If you live in a place like New York or California or many cities in Western Europe, you could be working the first 4, even 5 months of the year just for the tax man. Everything you earn from January 1st until sometime in May goes straight to taxes. You're essentially funding a social contract that, let's be honest, feels a little one-sided these days. You're paying for services you might not use into a system that seems to be getting less and less reliable. But what if you could legally and ethically opt out of that arrangement?
To really understand just how massive the difference is, I want to tell you a quick story. Let's meet two guys. We'll call them both Mark. They're basically the same person, same skills, same remote job, same 6-figure salary. But one of them makes a single decision that completely rewrites his financial future. Okay, so on the left, you've got Mark A. He lives in Seattle. He's doing great on paper, right? Pulling in a solid $150,000 a year. But the reality is he's getting absolutely hammered by federal taxes, state taxes, sky-high rent, and a cost of living that just keeps going up. Now, over on the right, you have Mark B. He has the exact same job for the same company, earning the exact same $150,000 salary. But he's made a change. He's based himself in a hub like Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, or maybe Dubai in the UAE, where the tax burden is minimal and his money goes way, way further. So at the end of the month, what does life look like for Mark A in Seattle? Well, after taxes chop his paycheck down and he pays his expensive rent, his bills, his groceries, he's able to save about $1,000. $1,000 on a $150K salary. It's just not adding up. He's working hard, but his location is eating his income alive.
Now let's check in with Mark B. He's living in a beautiful, modern apartment for about 40% less than Mark A. He's eating out at amazing restaurants, traveling. He's living a genuinely luxurious lifestyle. And after all of that, he's putting away a staggering $6,000 every single month. That's a 6x difference, just by changing his backdrop.
Okay, now let's play this out over a decade. They both do the same work for 10 years. Mark A has managed to save up a decent amount. But Mark B has $1 million more in his net worth than Mark A. Let that sink in. A full $1 million difference.
That's the power of geographic arbitrage. This isn't about working harder, it's about positioning yourself smarter. That $1 million is the difference between early retirement and working until you're 70. So right about now, you're probably thinking, okay, that's incredible, but how on earth is this legal? It sounds too good to be true. I get it, but it's 100% legal, and it's all built on established international tax principles. So let's get into the nuts and bolts. Let's break down exactly how Mark B. legally engineered this incredible financial advantage for himself.
The absolute cornerstone of this whole strategy is a concept called tax residency. Now, this is super important. Your tax residency is not the same as your citizenship. You don't have to give up your passport. Think of it as your official financial home base. It's the country that has the right to tax you. And what determines it isn't just your passport, but factors like how much time you spend there, where you have a home, and where your primary economic interests are. This is the master key that unlocks the entire loophole.
The second piece of the puzzle is finding a country with a territorial taxation system. This is a game changer. Imagine a country puts up a sort of tax fence around its borders. They only care about taxing money that is generated inside that fence. So if you live in, say, Panama, but your income comes from a US company or clients in Europe, that income is considered foreign sourced. It was made outside the fence. And in a territorial tax country, that foreign income is often 100% tax-free.
Okay, I hear my fellow Americans saying, but the US taxes its citizens no matter where they live in the world. And you are absolutely right. This is a unique complication. But don't worry, the IRS has tools for expats. The big one for our purposes is the Foreign Earned Income Exclusion, or FEIE. This is your absolute best friend in a low-tax or no-tax country. It allows you to legally exclude a very large chunk of your foreign salary from U.S. federal income tax. It's basically the government's way of saying, okay, you're living abroad, we'll give you a massive tax break.
And this is where the math gets really exciting. For 2026, the FEIE limit is projected to be around $132,900. On top of that, you still get to take the standard deduction, which should be about $16,100. You add those two together and you get a zero tax sweet spot of around $149,000. That means if you're a single person earning up to that amount from foreign sources while living abroad, you could owe exactly zero in U.S. federal income tax. That is life-changing.
All right, so we've got the theory down. We understand tax residency, territorial tax, and the FEIE. Now for the fun part. Where in the world can you actually do this? Let's roll out the 2026 Opportunity Map and look at some of the best jurisdictions on the planet for this strategy. Here we go, a snapshot of the top 5 for 2026. Look at Paraguay, 0% tax on foreign income, and you barely have to be there. We're talking a quick visit once every few years to keep your residency active. Then you have the UAE. Think Dubai. 0% tax, world-class lifestyle. You just need to spend about 3 months a year there. Panama, a classic choice in Latin America. And you've even got great EU options like Cyprus, where you can get 0% tax as a non-dom by spending just 60 days a year. Each one offers a path to zero tax with different flavors and requirements.
So the big question is, which one is right for you? It really depends on your goals. If you crave ultimate freedom and don't want to be tied down, Paraguay is unbeatable. If you're a high earner who wants that luxury lifestyle and a major international hub, the UAE is your spot. If you love Latin culture and see yourself building a life there, Panama is a fantastic base. And if you need that connection to the EU but want to minimize your time there, Cyprus is the perfect solution. It's all about matching the jurisdiction to your lifestyle.
Okay, deep breath. Before you go opening a tab to book a flight to Dubai, we have to have a very important, very serious conversation about compliance. Because the game has changed. The old tricks and loopholes that worked 5 or 10 years ago are now traps. The world is getting smaller, and you have to do this the right way.
Now I know what some of you might be thinking. There's this old idea of the perpetual tourist, right? The person who just hops from country to country every few months, never staying long enough to become a tax resident anywhere, and therefore having no tax home at all. It sounds clever in theory, but in 2026, it is an absolutely terrible idea. Here's why that myth is now a trap. We now have global information sharing agreements like CRS 2.0 and CARF. Think of it like this. Nearly every bank and crypto exchange in the world is now in a giant group chat with tax authorities. They automatically report your account balances and activities. And if you don't have a declared tax residency anywhere, that's a massive red flag. You'll stick out like a sore thumb. Also, the old 183-day rule is no longer a magic shield.
Tax authorities now look at your center of vital interests. Where's your main home? Where's your family? Where are your business ties? They look at your whole life to decide where you belong.
So please, hear me on this. The goal in 2026 is not to be a ghost. It's not about hiding or being clever. It's about being transparent. It's about proactively choosing a jurisdiction with favorable rules and planting your flag there. You're creating a clean, clear legal structure where you can stand in the light and legitimately, proudly say, according to the rules of my chosen tax home, I owe 0%.
And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? Back to that first idea. More than your investment portfolio, more than your career path, in 2026 and beyond, your location is your single most important financial decision. The choice of where you plant your flag will have a greater impact on your net worth than almost anything else. So, the question I want to leave you with is, where will you choose? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments which of these locations sounds most appealing to you, or what's the first step you're going to take after watching this. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for spending time with us here at the Violet Vault. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay focused and keep growing.